If I could go back and talk to my 15-year-old self about money, this is exactly what I would say. And I wish an adult would have told me about this. When I was 15, my mother created a bank account for me with USAA, out of checking and a savings account. She told me, hey, put money in that savings. So I got that. I locked that in. But there was so much more I needed to know, more than just, hey, save that money. Because as I got my first job, as I started moving into my early 20s, I actually saved up a decent amount of money, but I missed out on at least $1,000 because I didn't know these things before. So I'm going to tell you now so you can work on it with your kids so they can have a better start than I had and maybe than you had. So lesson one will be save early. Like I said, I was a decent saver because my mom did at least tell me, hey, saving is important. You should do it. But I know a lot of people struggle with it. So here are my 2 tips for saving a lot of money and not spending every dollar you get. My tip 1 is set something up that's automated. You want an allotment. You want something that sends money to your savings account every single time you get paid automatically. If you have to do it manually, you're not going to stick to it. So if it's automated, something like $5, $10, or maybe you can set up a certain percentage of how much you get paid. Start that and forget it. Just forget it even happened and just get used to spending however much money is actually in your checking while secretly sending money to your savings. Even to expound on that a little more, if you can set up a savings that's in a different bank than your checking account, you'll save hundreds or thousands of more dollars. Believe me, that savings is too close to the checking is not going to work out. Another way to save a lot of money is changing your zero. So everybody has a zero. Zero is when you consider yourself to not have any more money to buy stuff. Most people's zero is zero. My zero started off at $100. Basically, if my checking account ever got down to $100, that's my zero. I don't allow myself to go below $100, even if I have the $100 in there. I pretend it's $0. I did that for a few months. I moved it up to $1,000. My new zero is $1,000. I never want to see this account lower than $1,000. For bonus points, something else I ended up doing is I set a maximum. I also never wanted my checking account to be more than $2,000. So if I ever did this and I found while I have my automatic payments going to savings, if I ever ended up having more than $2,000 in my checking account, I would take that extra and I'd move that to my savings as well. So I'm saving on the front end and the back end. This allowed me to amass like about 30 something, close to $40,000 over my first few years of being in the military. All right, lesson number 2. Now that we've talked about saving, I want to talk about how to make that savings grow much faster. I get a high yield savings account. My mother told me to save, but I never knew where to save. And she didn't either. So no disrespect to her. But instead of my USAA account where I had all my savings and I was gaining about $1 a year, if I just take that same amount of money that I had in that account and I move it over to a high yield savings account where I'm earning 3, 4, maybe even 5% as compared to 0.01%, effectively, let's just say if I was making $1 every year in USAA, in my high yield savings account, if I was getting 4%, I would have made $400 for every $1 that I was making with USAA. I'm sure you can imagine that adds up to quite a bit the more those dollars go up. So effectively, I went from earning a couple dollars a year to earning a couple, hundred, a little short of, a few thousand a year. So high yield savings account, literally just type it into Google. They got a bunch of good ones. I think Chase has one. Ally is the first one I heard about. They're good. And there's a few others. If you can't find them, let me know and I'll show you a list of them. And while we're talking about interest rates and growth, that leads me to lesson 3, which would be learn to make money work for you, not the other way around. So while you're doing all this working for money, maybe you got your first job, maybe you're getting allowance, learn how to make that money work for you. So something I wish I would have been told was stocks, right? I'd always heard the word. I think everyone's heard the word stocks, but we stop there. We don't figure out what brokerages we can go to start purchasing stocks. We don't know what stocks to purchase. We don't know what index funds are. None of these things. Out of all these things, if I could learn anything else, I would have wished I could have started putting money into the stock market when I was 15, as opposed to starting putting money in, when I was 25, right? Because if you look up, there's a compounding interest calculator. I'll put it in the description of this video. But instead of that same comparison, how in my USAA account, I was making $1. In my high yield savings account, out of making $400 for that $1. If you were investing that money into the stock market, and I'm talking about not even any of the risky stuff, if you were just putting money into some of the safest things there are, like the S&P 500, I could have been making $1,000 for every $1 that I had in my savings account. I'm sure you can imagine that's a grandiose amount, the more money you put into it. So, I mean, honestly, if I'd have went back, especially when you're young, you have so much time to fix whatever mistakes you make. So I'd have been putting all of my money into the stock market, and I would have had a very minuscule amount in my savings, kind of like I do now. I have way more money in the stock market than I do on my personal savings, just because of the growth potential that's there as compared to just letting my money sit in a savings account, not making as much. It just doesn't make sense to me anymore. Outside of your small emergency fund, everything else I'm investing. So I definitely would have done that much sooner, and I'd be, hundreds of thousands of dollars richer right now if I would have started when I was 15. All right, let's show a real life example of what I'm talking about. So this is investor.gov, and this is a compounding interest calculator. This is how you can check to see how much money you would gain over time with compounding interest being in the framework. So I will actually use what I give my son as an example. So I give him about $30 a week to put into an investment account. So 30 times 4 will put us at what, 120? So initial investment, we'll just say 120, and monthly contribution, we'll say 120. All right. So basically, this is saying every month we're putting $120 into the stock market. He is 14. He's almost 15. We'll just do 15. All right. 15 is 30. And for example, first we'll start off with the USAA amount. All right. So in 15 years, if he put $120 into USAA, this is how much he would make every year. Now, let's say he put this same money into a high yielding savings account. We'll just say we're doing, 4%. All right. Now, this is the difference. And now he's getting $29,000 after those 15 years. Okay. And now let's say the interest rate is 10% because he's putting his money into the S&P 500. Now he has $46,000. And all of this is with him just putting $120 a month. Like I said, I'm giving him $30 every single week. And this is how much he'll end up having if he continues this trend until he is 30. Now, some people may think that's a lot. Some people may think it's not that much. But now, just for, whatever's sake, I would like you to see what happens if he just continues 120. I think a lot of people can afford $120 a month. If he continues this, after he moves out the house, he just wants to keep doing it himself because I'm not going to keep paying for it. But if he puts his own 120 in there and he does this until he becomes, I don't know, when do people want to retire? 60. So 60 minus 15 equals 45. So if he does this for the next 45 years till he turns 60, right, the standard retirement age, this is how much money he'll have. It's just by $30 a week, right? I think many people can do that with really even a minimum wage job because he started when he was 15 and he just kept it going throughout the rest of his life until he became 60. He's now a millionaire and he can retire and do whatever he wants. I think that's something real important to think about. With very minimum effort, you could make your child a millionaire. They could retire with a lot more than whatever you're going to retire with. Just a thought, do what you want. This is what I'm doing right now. And this is why I started Mammoth Money Teen Academy, to make sure that teens learn about these things early so that they can ensure an early retirement, a comfortable retirement, have millions, $2 million, $3 million, $4 million, depending on how they decide to invest throughout their life. But the sooner you start, the quicker that compounding interest comes in. If you're a parent, click the link below and you can get your kid into Mammoth Money Teen Academy. If you are a teen, hey, I'm here to help you win. Ask me any questions. I'm happy to help.